Turn on your screens, let the magic unfold. Listening and healing as stories are told. Come one, come all, this is your time. No topics too tough, just heed the call. From mental health woes to justice we seek. Together we rise for the strong and the meek. A safe space for all, let's lift every voice. In a circle podcast where hearts unite, sharing our truths, bringing hope to the light. Community strong, we're never alone. Together as one, we've created a home. With laughter and love, we break down the walls. No topics too tough, just heed the call. From mental health woes to justice we seek. Together we rise for the strong and the meek. A safe space for all, let's lift every voice. So join the conversation, let's set the tone. In a circle podcast where love is well known.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Inner Circle Podcast. Today is Tuesday, February 17th. It's been like, we've been kind of off and on here, so and time is running by so fast. So I'm your host, Abe Kamara, and tonight I'm here with my two co-hosts, my two regular co-hosts. If these people are sick, the Inner Circle Podcast gets sick, so so they are back here with me tonight. And this topic for tonight is after the search, healing, and the road ahead for Minnesota. As you all know, ICE left Minnesota, or they said they were leaving Minnesota last week. So who knows whether they have left or they are leaving. So welcome to the show, Miss B.
Uh, Good evening, everyone. It's your girl, Miss B. How's it going?
Okay, Peterson.
Yeah, good evening to everyone. Good to see you too, and glad to be back here. Let's have fun.
Yeah. Well, folks, you can contribute to the conversation tonight by putting a comment in the chat. Call in with number 952-594-5154. Just for programming note, our number will be changing officially next week. Sago will have his own phone number, unique phone number. Sago Parker will have his own unique phone number because we told you all we're about to hit the road. So so that's gonna start happening here pretty soon, stuff like that. So but anyway, folks, welcome to the show, man. How have you guys been? How was your weekend, Miss B? And then Peterson, how was your weekend? Let's start with that. I know it was a long weekend. It was President's Day, Valentine's Day in the mix. So how was you guys' weekend, Miss B? You first.
Oh, my weekend was awesome.
Okay.
Let me see. It was so much happened, and then so much is a blur, but then so much happened like no. So on Saturday, Valentine's Day, we did breakfast first. Went to the original House of Pancakes for breakfast. And then Saturday evening, we went to Kincaid's restaurant, downtown St. Paul. Downtown St. Paul was pretty lit. The restaurant was packed. Good food, you guys. I recommend going to it. But somebody actually got proposed to in the restaurant on Valentine's Day. I know, right, Peterson? The whole restaurant was clapping. They were cheering on. They were so excited about that. And then on Sunday, we attended church. My dad turned 75, so they had something for him at the church, celebrated his birthday. And then we kind of went to go say goodbye to a longtime family friend as they are transitioning back to Liberia. And then on Monday, I don't know if it was to end or to start, because this week is my husband's birthday. So I told him, I was like, we were at Dave Chappelle last night. I'm like, baby, what a way to start your birthday week off, right? So we went to Dave Chappelle, the Grand Casino Arena. I'm sure that concert was sold out. That comedy show was sold out, if not almost sold out. The place was so packed. You waited in line for an hour just to get into the arena. Thank God the weather was nice, right? So you had to wait in line for an hour to get inside the arena. The Eclipse performed. It was crazy. And then Dave Chappelle came on for sure. and wasn't allowed to have our cell phones, so they locked them up before we entered. I'm sure that's probably what made the line go so long. But it was all the Trump jokes you can think about, all the ICE jokes you could think about. He was like, "Look, Minnesota, y'all shut it down. Y'all took care of ICE. I had to leave Europe to come back and salute y'all." So he actually put in an extra day at the last minute. So he added a show on Sunday, like 4 or 5 days. So he had 2 days here in Minnesota, Sunday night and Monday night. Both of them. Sunday night I know was completely sold out because we went to go look at tickets and we kept seeing sold out, sold out. And then Monday night again, people showed up in droves, large crowd. And he killed it. I mean, some of the jokes he gave, I can't say them because I can't edit them, and if I edit them, they won't sound as great. But yeah, it was a nice night, and so epic night, epic weekend, epic night.
Okay, Peterson. I don't know whether you can tap that or not, but Miss B seemed like you had a blast.
I don't
What's
think
about
I
you,
can,
bro?
I can top that. To get close, I'll have to go back a couple of weekends because since I haven't been here for a couple of weeks, the last time that I was in here, I was getting ready to go to Phoenix for a wedding. So my cousin got married in Phoenix. So it was a trip for the whole family. And my first son, he stood in the wedding. That was his first like official wedding, the 10-year-old, and the Fortnite age and the Roblox age. So coming to the dance floor, you can just imagine what type of dances and things they were doing. But it was fun. Phoenix is as advertised. I've been there once, but it's hot. It's hot even this time of year, and they tell people this is the best time of year to actually go out there because if you wait till summertime, it's too dangerously hot outside. So, yeah, and then it was funny that I ran to our own Dr. Parker at the wedding. Yeah, I saw him at the wedding. I'm like, oh, you know the bride or the groom. He said he knows the bride. So she's my cousin, but she grew up in like Ghana. And then it's just like we live in a small world because she and my wife grew up together in Ivory Coast and Ghana, not knowing that we are related. And then they came here, and then
Nice.
I've met and the connection, everything. So, but yeah, it was a fun weekend, and then we came back here and for the long holiday weekend. We didn't do much, but wife, she's like, instead of us going out this Valentine's, how about we do like a restaurant style dinner at home? So I'm like, okay. So she's like,
Nice.
just pretend like you're paying the bill at the at the restaurant and give that amount so that I can be able to prepare something. And she made like steak dinner. It was actually nice. She made steak, mashed potatoes, salad, like everything was really really nice. So, and the kids have Friday and Monday off, so it was just a nice long weekend.
So you actually follow Taylor May vibe because that was Taylor May love
Oh,
advice
really?
right there. Yeah, we did a segment here.
Oh,
That was Taylor May love advice right there, right? He said he and his wife did that a couple of years ago. I don't know when,
yeah,
but where his wife made up the bag out of the
yeah,
red, the
yeah.
flowers, the dinner, the wine and stuff. So
Yep. Yeah, she made
well,
the dinner, and I was responsible for the flowers and, like you said, the wine and everything else. So,
you
I love it.
see, Zago Podcast, we do have impact, folks.
It starts at home. I love that. That is
Yeah.
so romantic. Oh,
I see. So nothing to tap you to. My weekend, boring, boring, boring. Nothing. There was no,
wow, Abraham, come on.
you know,
Did you
there was
buy
no weekend.
Valentine's Day basket for my niece?
Oh no, I mean your nieces are so expensive. So it's like every day is Valentine in my house. So now it's like yeah, her budget. Since I opened a bank account for her, is that maybe that's the worst mistake I made or something. Every time dad transfer money to my account, I transfer it, and then she blow it off. Dad transfer money to my account, and so it's like but it was fun. And then she had her friend over. The little one went to a movie. So I took care of them Valentine. I mean, this Valentine this weekend. So you
Nice.
know,
I like
yeah,
that.
Nice.
Those are the
you know,
ladies in your life. So
yeah, yep. Definitely. Well, folks, back to the serious stuff. If you want to call it serious, I know Peterson can relate to this, right? Last week, the border czar who is here with us in Minnesota here with 3,000 agents announced that ICE was leaving Minnesota. And, everyone was cautiously rejoicing, but we're still hearing that still activity going on. They are even like, you know, um, trying to hook people on with false pretense and all those stuff, right? There's still some activity in the community. But Peterson, right, is like when that announcement came to you guys over there in Chicago, right? Is that what was that experience like? I know you don't live in Chicago itself, but now we are kind of going through that, right? That whole search, and then they said they are joining back. What was that experience there for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it was like cautiously being hopeful because a lot of people were silently rejoicing, like, oh, finally, finally. But then at the same time, you have to like proceed with caution. Like,
Hmm.
is it true? Are they actually leaving? Or, excuse me, are they just saying this for like the media or for people to so that the spotlight cannot be on Minnesota anymore? But I mean, with this whole immigration crackdown since last year into this year already, whenever they are leaving one place, other areas have to worry because it's like it's an ongoing thing. We don't
mhm.
know where they're going next, and whichever city or area's been training with the president as like this is a target, this is a target. Now they have to be worrying if they are next. But people have to still proceed with caution. Just because they announce like they're leaving, it doesn't mean that they will just pack up and leave abruptly within 24 hours. It's going to be like a trickle down effect. They're going to the majority of them are going to leave, but then they will still have, like you said, there will still be activities because even after they departed from Chicago, they still left some people behind, and there was still some ICE activities that you can hear and see on the news.
Yeah. And the thing though, right, is like, to be real, I think, you have to live it to actually have that human experience, right? The impact
Right.
that I found in Minnesota. I think Minnesota, according to even the government stats, right, Minnesota is the largest immigration enforcement, and it have had a huge impact on our community.
Mhm.
Small businesses, right? Immigrants are kind of afraid, to even venture out. There have been a lot of documented incidents about immigrants. Some are afraid to come outside of their homes. Communities, immigrant corridors, businesses cannot venture out. So the human impact, the toll it has taken on this community, it has been very, very huge. Now they hear they are leaving, as you said, right? Folks are cautiously optimistic, but then there's still that kind of activity. Ms. B, you kind of in a community as an activist. What are you hearing from your cycles?
I mean, we we heard the announcement, but it still doesn't feel like they are gone. Um,
Mm,
and we don't know like and that's the thing is like it said they're going to decrease their numbers by 700. So can you imagine 3,000 people were deployed here? That's a large number. And now we may have 2,300. That's still a very large number of people, ICE agents that will be in Minnesota on the ground. They still are more than, I don't know, maybe the police force combined in the whole northwest suburbs or, most of the state, right? With Minneapolis being the largest city in the state, and they have a police force, I think about 200 and maybe 30 or less. And so if ICE is 2,300 strong on the ground, they still outnumber our police force here in the state. And so it's still kind of an alarming number. But I'm optimistic as some businesses have opened back up, especially businesses that have been shut down for a month plus, have opened back up. They're feeling comfortable to some extent for their customers returning back to these businesses and be able to shop or eat. Nobody's doing any like heavy sit downs as far as the targeted population business owners. But they're at least having some traffic now coming to their spaces and doing carry out. So that gives me some optimism.
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify though, right? I think that Tom Hartman, who's is the the border czar, he announced that there was going to be a full withdrawal. It began last week and it'll be some this week. I think it's going to be more than the 700. I think just to clarify that, it's going to be. I think there is it might be the entire amount before the whole announced search. I think the data on Minnesota, we only had like about 100 ICE agents in Minnesota, right, on a regular, right? That because as I've said it on this show, it might be. I mean, I might have said it jokingly, but on a serious note, right? In all seriousness, Minnesota is 99.9% white, and to have 3,000 ICE agents here looking for immigrants, you're not going to find it, and that's how the Renee Good and the Ed Expertise stuff came about because at the end of the day, you're going to encounter your own white people. And guess what? Right? When you want to be aggressive with them, you're going to harm them because the immigrants you are looking for, you are trying to hunt down, you are not going to find them. And the Minneapolis Police Department you are talking about, they have like 600 active duty police officers. You send 3,000 agents in that community. What is they going to do, right? So what they have done, I think, before even the announcement last week, they started spreading to the suburbs and the outer suburbs, right? Experts, like because like again, who they are going to encounter their own white people because first of all, immigrants are not, if you get out of the 7 county metro, right, which is the Twin Cities, you don't find a lot of immigrants in those communities. So if you go there hunting immigrants, you're not going to find it. Where are you going to encounter your own white people, right? So it's the whole thing, like the whole like cycle. So I think just to clarify that, Tom Hartman said they're going to draw down the entire force. Obviously, I mean, as you guys said, it's being cautious. Everyone's being cautiously optimistic. But then, you know what I mean? That's what it is. Right? But Peterson, right? For you guys, well, for you guys' experience, right? Once that situation occur, like the days and weeks after that, right? How was it like? How did life get back to normal? Because it's, I mean, it's like that's what everyone's wondering, yeah, right? What is normal going to look like? What is normal like in Chicago when ICE left? On mute.
Yeah, it takes time, and it's going to take time. And each community, each situation is unique. But here in Chicago, it was a gradual like integration of people coming back into society because people were still being afraid. Like, okay, am I safe to go shop? Am I safe to go to this restaurant? Can I venture outside? Can I go about doing normal like everyday activities? Because am I sure that they actually left? Because some of them might be dressed in plain clothes with like civilians and things like that. So they can still hide within the population. But if they made that announcement, like it's going to be a full withdrawal, like I said, it's still going to take time, and they are they are going to linger so that that fear that which was the intention all along of their fear tactics, so that they can inflate more like fear into people because people are going to still be like second guessing anybody to see that looks like anything federal. They'll be like, okay, is that an ICE agent? Or people will be scared to come out. But here in the Chicago area, uh, I can say life is back to 100%, but is gradually getting there. And like I said, it's going to take time. And here it took time for people to start coming out and going to like downtown and other places and immigrant led businesses for them to fully open and be functional.
Yeah, yeah. Coming to hello to all is I truly live in Minnesota. That's what they said. That's what we heard. Hopefully, hopefully they can keep their word that they are living in Minnesota. Ms. B, right? I mean, you're talking about small businesses. I know this has had a huge impact on, small businesses in the community. Some of them closed down. Some of them have maybe they are going to run out of business. Thankfully, right, as I said, Minnesota is always a generous state. There has been a lot of foundations that come forward to with some business grants, small business grants. But again, right, these things sometimes in our community because a lot of our businesses, they are not ready, because they are always guidelines you have to meet, revenue threshold or whatever. I mean, it's like with some of the help that are coming for small businesses, do you think businesses in our immigrant-led communities are going to, I mean, qualify for those helps? I mean, the state is talking about $10 million forgivable loan or something. Foundations are coming forward with help. Are our people going to benefit from these things? I mean, from these initiatives.
No. And here's the thing. It's similar to what happened during COVID when that first wave of money came out from the governor's office. The first $32 million came out, and minority businesses, micro businesses, BIPOC businesses, whatever you want to look at them at, did not qualify. The governor had to reissue $18 million during COVID. And he had to be intentional and say, this is who it's going to go for. And these are some of the eligibility requirements it's going to have to meet. And that happened because these businesses had meeting with state officials, had meeting with different departments within the state, and said, look, what you qualify as a small business does not address our micro businesses, do not address our BIPOC businesses definition of a small business. And so we have to do that. And it's so unfortunate. It seems like every time we have to do that extra mile, go that extra mile, do that extra advocating, because here it is. The governor says, release these funds, $10 million, and it's starting at people net profit of $400,000 or more. And that's not us, right? That's not our businesses, right? Again, you're probably wanting to address restaurants, and I don't even know if our restaurants are making that, those type of revenues on an annual basis, right? And then you're leaving out our salons. You're leaving out a lot of our businesses that do not do annual incomes of 400K or more as businesses. And so it's like just today we were talking about writing a letter and having to go the extra mile to do the additional advocating. Even the idea that $10 million is going to solve the economic hardship that has been caused from December to now is not a realistic number, to be honest, right? We have organizations that are already doing the data around just housing. And Kira came out, released that information today about, how Metro Surge has driven tens of millions into excess rent debt across Minnesota. We're talking numbers of 27.4 million or more when we were already dealing with people with 44 plus million of rent debt, right? And so just add that additional rent debt that is happening now because of Metro Surge. And so we have yet to really touch on the economic hardship that has been caused to ethnic economies and ethnic communities.
I mean, it's like before I get back to Peterson, right? Let me just push you a little bit, right? Why is it, especially in the African immigrant community, our businesses don't seem to qualify for these things? I mean, you might say, "Oh, I mean, are you trying to tell me, economy that is 35 trillion or whatever trillion dollars, you don't have business in our community that actually have net profit or revenue of 400,000? Is that what's going? I mean, you in the community. I mean, you've been involved in that business space. What's going on? Is there a missing link? Is there no one is maybe like we don't have business consultant telling these people how to maybe scale their business? What is missing? What's the missing piece here, though?
We're dealing with Minnesota. You mentioned data that is nationwide, so that's unfair. We're dealing with Minnesota. The state of Minnesota, I believe, has a budget of $70 billion a year, right? And so let's put things into perspective. We don't have a $37 trillion budget. And within the state of Minnesota, when you look at small businesses and you just look at like you said, the state is 99% white. That's not the real data, but just, we don't make up a very large population size of businesses anyways, right? But there are businesses in our community that are million plus, net worth, in the state of Minnesota. There are a lot of them, right? But for the majority of them, no, they're not sitting in that higher income bracket. For the majority of them and where they are sitting at, these resources will not address them. There's nothing wrong with somebody saying that I want to forgo my 9 to 5 and opening a small mom and pop, right? And in that mom and pop, I'm addressing, if I was making $75,000 a year in my 9 to 5, and now I'm making $250,000 a year in my business, I'm still doing well. And that's ultimately what that picture looks like for a lot of our businesses when we say mom to pop, grocery store, restaurant. If you're making 300K, even 400K a year, you're still doing a lot better than you were doing in your 9 to 5. And that is the goal for most of our businesses, and that is fine.
Okay. Peterson, right? The city of Minneapolis came up with preliminary data that how the impact, the economic impact, the financial impact, that direct hit to the city budget is going to be about $200 million, right? In the Chicago area, when ICE left, after whatever, I don't know how long they were there. Here they have been here 2 months plus, but I don't know how long they were in Chicago for. Do you know what was the data around the economic impact, especially to the city of Chicago and things like that?
No, I didn't get the data, but they were here, I think, a little longer than 2 months in the Chicago.
Okay.
So you can imagine if just a little over 2 months in Minnesota, if it had that type of impact on the city, then Chicago. And for Chicago, we have a larger population. It's a larger city. So, of course, the impact is going to be greater. But like Ms. B was saying when you were asking about why is it that immigrant led businesses, it seems like they get like she said, yeah, okay with just 200, 300, 400, but uh, in order to qualify for some of these like grants and things, even during COVID, you have to be in that top tier. And our businesses, it's we're not the Walmart, the Target, the McDonald's, Starbucks. Is uh, most of us, or most of the people that own businesses, they are catering to like the community. Basically, it's not uh, the target audience is not the 99% percent of Minnesotans that if that is the population ratio, that's not the target. So with that, it keep us on the radar, and we are not willing to like take on all these like debt like other groups. Like if you have a Caucasian counterpart that owns a business, yeah, he can qualify for, even if he's not up to that level, he still might, the bank might still look at him favorable and give him that loan. But there are a lot of red tapes and barriers to go through if you are a minority business owner.
Okay, okay. Well, folks, tonight we are discussing after the surge, right? Healing and the road ahead for Minnesota. As you all know, last week, the government announced that ICE was leaving Minnesota after 2 months of terrorizing this community, after 2 months of, of dragging people out of their cars, dragging people out of their houses or their apartments, and killing two U.S. citizens, two white, people, right? They said they are finally leaving Minnesota. And the thing is, right, they were naming data, as I said. First of all, full disclosure, right? This is my government, but sometimes, man, they're lying sometimes it just doesn't make sense, especially, the data because this is my city, knowing Minnesota, right? Some of the data they were quoting, oh, how they have done this, they have gotten illegal, criminals off the street and said, dude, Minnesota does not have that many criminals. Okay.
Exactly.
If you're talking about criminal, what are native, what are folks that were born here or immigrants or stuff like that, we don't have a problem with criminals in this state. I mean, you do have everywhere, right? Where in like the North Minneapolis or certain parts of this city, where you have the normal gun violence that goes on everywhere in this country, in every city, in every metro, right, and things like that. So the fact that I mean, some of the data they were quoting that they have been successful, I think they were all just a bunch of BS because those data didn't make sense. And considering, as I said, Minnesota, some of the stuff they were talking about just just didn't add up or just doesn't add up. But finally, I think the courage that that folks in Minnesota show was very, very. I think the whole world have kind of say, wow, we thought, I mean, people there were going to break, but it never happened. Miss B, what was the reaction to that, right? As a lifelong Minnesotan, right? Seeing what happened and the resilience of the community, the way the community reacted. Up to now, there are still observers out there, in full force, right? Following these folks. And I'm surprised. I said, man, these people are not afraid.
No, and I just think back to some of the things that Dave Chappelle was saying last night. Like, the white people in Minnesota are no joke. They are some serious allies. They're gangster, right? And it is because of the diversity that we have, and strong diversity that we have in this state, has helped to be able to drive ICE out, hopefully, right? Coming together. I mean, what the numbers is ridiculous, like 50 to 70,000 people coming out in negative 20 degrees weather. That historical. I know somebody's child will be reading that in a history book somewhere in the future, that all these Minnesotans came out on the coldest day here in our state this winter to support their neighbors, to support their community, to say, ICE, we don't want you here, right? I'm going to need that same type of energy to support these communities to get back on their feet, to support conversations around, a moratorium to prevent eviction. I'm going to need that same type of energy to support legislative dollars to go back to all the businesses and not just some of the businesses. We should be addressing businesses at every income level and not just some of the businesses, right? And I think ultimately ICE was like, man, it warms up in Minnesota. It's going to be a whole nother story. So that number is going to quadruple. So we better get out of here as quick as possible.
Okay. Okay. Springtime is coming, and they know, right, is that we might be here, giving them hell as they have been giving them hell. But I mean, let's discuss the mental health aspect of it, though, right? It's like, I know, like Peterson in the Chicago area when that whole thing started. For you guys, I think you guys had Greg Bovino for the entire time, so it was like, I mean, you guys, the streets were chaotic all the time, right? It's like as aging over. But I mean, folks in the Chicago area, or even I mean, folks in your community, how have they been dealing with the whole mental health piece, right? Because man, I mean, this thing, it can actually take a toll because the fear, as you always mention, right? The fear that it comes with. But when I mean, it's like, so how have folks been dealing with the whole mental health aspect in Chicago?
Yeah, I don't know if the data would show that there was any more mental impact on people than there was previous to ICE coming into Chicago, because like every day in this country that you get to wake up is you have to think about it, like, man, is there's so much going on around us every day. You even places that will not see ICE, that have not even heard of ICE, they still have mental issues going on, because we just have too many triggers and too many things to make people go insane in this country. But if you think about it again, well, we're not saying like, oh yeah, this is like a mental health war, that if you come here, you just go mental. No, but there's too many things going on out there that can get people that we all, I don't know who was it that said it on the show, that we all need to go for some type of analysis or some type of evaluation after this whole thing. And we don't know if it's any. It might be any for Minnesota as they did for Chicago a little while ago, but other places, as long as this administration is in power, I guess that's what they ran on, and they're going to take that. That's what's going to be their downfall too. But they're going to take it all the way down. But yeah, people in my community, they have resources. My youngest son, he swears he wants to be a police officer for some reason. Yeah, he's 5, and whenever my wife's like, because his sister, my daughter, said she wants to be a doctor, and when my wife said, "Oh, do you want to be a doctor?" He said, "No, I don't want to be a doctor. I want to be." He says fire truck. He doesn't know the difference between a fireman and a fire truck. So he's like, I want to be a fire truck and a police officer. So whenever we're driving around, he purposely looks for like police cars so we can stop for him to like give officers hugs. But some of the encounters that we have had with police officers is something that they themselves, they proactively come out and say it, like there are resources out in the community for people. Like they know that this has taken a toll, to your point, because even though in my direct community we didn't have any ICE activities, but there were still people protesting because we're standing in solidarity with the rest of the community around us. So
Mhm.
we have protests, and whenever we had they had a protest, there would be a large police presence, and they are not just standing around like watching people. Some of them will actually have signs and things like that, which I don't know if that's legal for them to do, but that's how they come out so that they can show support.
Just to that point where you mentioned law enforcement, right? Do you think the whole ICE surge around this country, in Chicago, in Portland, in New Orleans, in Charlotte, now in Minneapolis, do you think is eroding trust in law enforcement though, right? Even local police. Do you think that folks might look at law enforcement differently, especially the immigrant population?
Yes, yes, they definitely will. So whichever community it is, the law enforcement there, the local law enforcement, they have to be intentional and say that we stand with the community. This is where we serve, and this is where majority of them live within that community. So they have to come out and show, because, like you said, if they just, although it's a federal mandate, but if you just out of sight, out of mind, it would be like, okay, well, they allowed ICE to come here, so they are in cahoots with ICE, which is contrary to some of the communities, especially around where I live. Uh, you will always see the police with protesters and things like that. So yeah, they will have to build trust in law enforcement. Like, okay, they are here to serve the local community, and regardless of what the federal mandate was.
I mean, and to be, and I must commend the our local law enforcement here, the chief of police in Broken Park, the sheriff, the chief of police in both Minneapolis and Paul. I think they were standing with the community, right? They have been advocating for the community, even though the federal government interpreted that they don't want to cooperate. But to your point, right? It's like they live in this community. They are also part of this community. So if they maybe work with the federal government in a way where in that they are attracting their own residents, that might what create tension. But long term, who knows what's that going to do? I mean, like Miss B, like Broken Park where you live has a huge immigrant population. What's that going to do to the relationship between? I know your police chief, know him very well. He's been on our platform here a couple of times. Nice guy. He's been very forceful and pushing back and saying ICE needs to change their tactics because some of it was wrong. But what's that still going to do to the relationship? Because I think he has spent a long time trying to build trust in our community.
I mean, it hit close to home. We had officers who serve on our force that were encountered by ICE. So that's how close to home it came. It came for him and his boys, right? They were harassed. They had their encounters with ICE. Um, I will say I don't know who decided that ICE would get to put the word police on their uniforms. I think that was really disturbing and that was fraudulent because you're not police, right? You FBI puts FBI, DEA puts DEA. Police are the only ones that normally have police. I don't know why ICE. You have ICE on your uniform. Immigration Customs Enforcement should have been written out. I don't know who made that decision to have ICE put police, and police is bold and the ICE is, smaller print. And so that was like a confusion right there. And they have caused problems between community trusting police. And police had really come a long way, post George Floyd, and everything had really come a long way to get community comfortable with them again and build those community relations. And I think ICE has really impacted what that looks like going forward. When you think about the mayor of Minneapolis, post George Floyd, the different committees in Brooklyn Center, post Dante Wright, and the different committees and community resolutions that have been passed to engage community trust when it comes to law enforcement. I think a lot of that has been impacted.
Okay.
As much as these police chiefs have tried to be on the front line, be in support of the community, stand in place with community against ICE, it has still impacted those relationships going forward.
Yeah, yeah. Well, folks, tonight we are discussing after the search, healing, and the road ahead from Minnesota. our community has been dominated by ICE since uh, since December, and stuff like that. There's been huge ICE presence here, and they just announced last week that they were leaving the state. They were leaving this North Star state. I don't know where they are going next, right? So join the conversation tonight by putting comment in the chat according to our number 952-594-5154. But Peter, I don't think, right? I think the administration, I'm not speaking for them. I'm not that spokesperson, even though, it's my administration. But I don't think they're going to go anywhere else, right? Because of what happened in Minnesota here. I don't think they're going to go anywhere. That's just what because of what happened in Minnesota and two U.S. citizens, not only just U.S. citizens, there's a difference. We now know there are differences between U.S. citizens. When you have an accident, go to stop you and say, "Oh, are you a U.S. citizen?" That stuff is funny, right? But hey, but we know that two U.S. citizens were murdered basically, or they were killed. And I mean when they go and they're white people. White people were killed, right? By these guys. It created a huge PR nightmare for the administration. I don't think they are going to go somewhere else. Even if they go somewhere else, it might be on a low key, not this whole
Yeah,
flashy thing,
that's yeah,
right?
that's what I was going to
Not
say.
this whole flashy thing that they've been doing since they started the whole aggressive immigration stuff. So that's
Yeah,
just my take on that.
yeah. So I think you are partially right. Uh, it's not like they're not going to go anywhere else. But if they do go, which I think they still will go other places, but now they are going to go with different mindset, different tactics, because like the way they've been doing this whole, it's like invasion of a country. Like they come, this is like D-Day. They just storm a state and they bring in all these agents and just outnumber local law enforcement and things like that. But if they are still going to go other places. But I think now, like what the person that took over in Minnesota, he said uh, this was the initial target was to go after criminals and things, but they turn it. And if that's a big if they don't go anywhere else, Minnesota is going to go down. I mean, regardless, Minnesota will go down in history as putting a king in
Yes.
administrative goals. But yeah, if they don't go or do any further ice raids nationwide, that's going to be like Minnesota is going to be up there as the state. That's the one that broke the camel's back. Like, yeah, they were the ones that stopped this whole thing. But I think they will still go places, just under maybe not in so much numbers and not with so much force and things like that. So they'll have to rethink their their whole tactics now.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing, though, right? The other thing, just to first of all, I mean, when this whole thing started long time ago, when administration took over a year ago, the way they were going about things, I said the business community was going to revolt, right? I read a Wall Street Journal article in South Texas, right? Business leaders have started telling the administration this stuff is becoming real. It's impacting the community, right? It is the Latino community that build houses in this country. Now, a lot of development, communities are sitting empty because these folks are afraid to go to work. And so a lot of business leaders, a lot of corporate leaders now have started reaching out to the White House quietly that, hey, get your act together. The other thing we should also remember here, there's a midterm election coming up. I think if anything, this is a year immigrants really, really need to vote, even though they said now they're going to have ICE agents at these police stations. You know what I mean? But there are a lot of dynamics coming into play, right? That I think is going to have the administration to say, you know what, we don't want to go this route anymore. That's just what I think. We don't want to, the aggressiveness we're doing, or even the whole immigration stuff doesn't make sense, right? Is that the way they were going to tactics and the enforcement and things like that. And the other thing, they have labeled all immigrants as criminals because they said they were going after the worst of the worst. As I said, in Minnesota, there's no worst of the worst. According to the data they still have shared, most of those that they even call the worst of the worst here were people that are already in prison, like someone who was already maybe in a Hennepin County jail, or another county jail, where already committed a crime because they know how legal status. That person was not like roaming the street of Minneapolis or St. Paul, right? So those are things that's going to have them to pause. You know what? all immigrants are not criminal. The thing you guys were doing, right, didn't really make sense. And then also you have election coming up. I mean, these folks, Congress, right? I mean, some of these folks have to fight for their lives now, right? And then they have to get votes from the immigrant community. So I think it's my personal take here. I think the administration is going to change their tactics. Not only that, they might be thinking because like even a lot of folks are leaving the administration, right? Especially DHS, that identical agency because of everything, because of the backlash they have faced. That if you look at polling after polling, immigration used to be one of the strongest point for the administration. Now they are underwater on that because the whole thing was just dumb. You know what I mean? And things like that. So Miss
And
B, go ahead.
there's so many economic impacts in so many levels, and I think you know we pat ourselves on the back for what we did here in Minnesota, yes, but I ultimately too what is influencing this is yeah, the powers that be was like, this thing is harming our bottom line. The economy is tanking, right? Where you came here on a mission to get this economy back going, to deal with some of the things that we've been dealing with under the last administration. And bro, you have not addressed that at all, right? You came to address the harm that who was causing. There was no data nowhere to support the fact that you want to believe that having illegal immigrants here undocumented folks was causing such major harm. You instead in your quest to reduce their size have caused more harm at all levels, right? So I don't know why is it that okay, this is something he ran on and people voted for him because of his strong policies that he was going to come and address with the illegal people here and building a wall and what have you. And it has caused more harm than good at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I just want us to think about at the end of the day, who was the most targeted? People who have already been trying to close the wealth gap, urban communities, BIPOC communities, Black communities, Latino communities, right? These are your most low income people, right? The highest wealth gap. It's like we couldn't afford any more things to come and impact the wealth that is the little bit of wealth that we've been able to generate here over the last couple of decades in these communities. It's like you've taken us back to the beginning of the race line, right?
Okay.
With this surges in key ethnic economies across the nation, key ethnic areas, ethnic economy driven areas, right? When you think about the Mexican Mile in Chicago, right? The amount of wealth that have been accumulated by the Latino community in that area that you have just decimated, right? Minneapolis has the largest amount of immigrant businesses here in the state, right? And just think about those ethnic economies. And then when you come to the suburbs, the first ring suburbs, Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center, just think about those ethnic economies that have just been decimated where you were trying to at least have some generational wealth happening, right? That's what we're dealing with as the aftermath.
Okay. The thing about it, right, well, folks, tonight we are discussing after the surge, healing, and the reward I have for Minnesota. It's been a great discussion. First of all, I know, like you're talking about the damages to the community, especially to uh low-income communities, Black community, Latino communities. But Peterson, right, like I mean, in the Chicago area or other cities, I mean, what kind of Minnesota, yeah, but who bears the responsibility, right, to maybe rebuild these communities when all of this nonsense about search is over, right? Who takes on the rebuilding? I mean, I hear, as I said, right, like started this segment by saying, right, in Minnesota, our governor has announced $10 million, right, forgivable grants to small businesses. The Minneapolis Foundation, a lot of corporations came, the great thing about Minnesota, we have like a lot of Fortune 500 companies here. A lot of them came together and donated a certain amount of money to the Minneapolis Foundation to give to impacted businesses in the Twin Cities, right? But whose responsibility it is for rebuilding?
Well, it's supposed to be if you if you break it, you fix it, but that's not how it works. And like Governor Tim Walz was saying in Minnesota after uh, Andy's death, Like they come and they destroy, they bring all this destruction, all this chaos, and then they leave for us to clean up that mess. So now the responsibility is going to fall to the state and the local government, so that it can be able to bring back some form of normalcy. Because if you wait and say, oh, okay, since the federal government broke it or they caused all this destruction, we're going to wait for them to fix it. Yeah, good luck with that. You're gonna you're gonna don't hold your breath. So the responsibility now falls to the local government and residents. Everybody have to now like tie their bootstraps and come together and say, okay, if there's a building that was destroyed, if it's a private building, people, neighbors can come together and help. I mean, of course, people still are afraid, like you were saying, construction workers and things. Majority of them are immigrants, and if they are afraid to come out to work, then you're gonna have a lot of like abandoned buildings and things in the community. So uh, to Ms. B's point about there was already this chasm, like this gap. Now, with all of this immigration activity in every state that you go to, now it's just pushed. It just made that gap even wider because now people have to struggle more to even come back to wherever, whatever level they were, and you don't know how long that's going to take. So the responsibility now falls to the local government and local residents, each individual. We have to all like come together. You can't say, oh, because I wasn't impacted or it was in my neighborhood, or it was in one of my neighbors. You never know. These things, they are dynamic. It can just happen to anybody.
Miss B though, right, you as a community activist always in the community, right? Should there be like, I know because I don't know, like Peterson is, I don't know whether there was any data in, I mean, in Chicago, like, to know the full impact, right? So I mean, should there be like an independent review of what really happened, like in Minnesota here, right? Should there be like to come? I know the city of Minnesota, I mean, the city of Minneapolis said there was $200 million direct impact to their, I mean, to their budget, not even the economy, but just to their budget, right? That's what they're anticipating. But should there be like an independent review of not only like what is happening to the city itself, but these minority businesses, the immigrant corridors, right? To say what's the true impact of this, right? That in terms of kids not going to school, families not going to work, right? Folks not going to work. Folks running, I mean, to your point, Adam, is be about rent, right? Folks are, because if you're not working, you got to pay your rent. The landlord is not going to say, hey, because ICE here, so they're going to give you a free pass, right? So should there be some kind of an independent review to know like the full impact of this thing, so that maybe the government can be, next time they want to go into another community, they can have it. They can actually have a pause that, man, these things have real human impact.
I mean, yeah, I mean, folks have already been doing data. As we've been in it, we've been hearing the data, 80% to 100% of income being lost. So you're going to have community organizations that are already addressing the data and gathering more data. And we'll do, some data post this situation. Like I said, Kira is an organization that does, community research, and they've already taken it upon themselves to do the data around housing and people facing evictions. That's why I believe tomorrow organizations will be going to the Capitol to speak to the governor to address passing a moratorium to help prevent evictions for people, because people are behind on their rent. They were already probably struggling to pay the rent. Now they're like ridiculous behind on their rent. Again, the money he released right now is only addressing businesses, right? Nothing's been available to address rent help for community. Hennepin County already was providing like $2.3 million in rent help support. So now that's been, going to be over exhausted, and those resources won't be there to support this tripling amount of people facing, not falling behind on their rent. And I will say, yeah, definitely who's responsible should be the government.
Mhm.
You know, they should be responsible. Will they come through? Like Peterson said, no, most likely not, because during this ICE situation, SBA took it upon themselves to say that business loans now can only be given to people who are American citizens. So just think,
Okay.
again, those doors continue to close, that gap continues to widen for us.
No, I mean, the thing about it, right? The thing about, I think there's a lesson to all immigrants, right? There are a lot of things about this whole immigration. The administration has been aggressive in not only the enforcement, but doing a lot of things, like to kind of, I think, maybe give immigrants community in this country a pause. Or I don't know what they have been trying to do, right? I don't know. I don't know. As I said, I don't know the end goal or what it is they're trying to aim at. But Peterson, right, is like, what can other communities learn, man, from Minnesota? Because the thing we did here, man, was not easy, right? It's like the ice out sign was all over, right? It's like these folks, the community made it uncomfortable. Yeah. you know, there was these whistles, there was these car horns. People took it a full-time job to actually monitor. Monitoring eyes a full-time job for some people. You know how our white people are. When they take something seriously, they can take it very, very seriously, right? So it's like the advocacy out there, the folks out there doing their thing, is a real, real thing where people are monitoring. Monitoring eyes is a real thing in Minnesota. But what can other communities, learn from Minnesota, right? The way we stood up to this occupation.
Yeah, I think uh, that's the right word to use, the occupation, the way Minnesota stood up to it. But other communities and other areas that are of potential target for this administration, they have a lot to learn from Minnesota's example. Like you said, people were going out and they made this like their full-time job, monitoring these people. It's like, we don't want you in our community. We don't have criminals here. We don't. What's your purpose? And uh, going back to your earlier point about, like, if they have data, or if somebody's collecting data, I'm sure the administration already had data about how many illegal immigrants potentially in Minnesota. Now, compared Chicago, the Chicago land area that is way bigger than Minneapolis and Paul, we didn't have even half as much agents as were deployed in Minnesota. So if the impact, and I went back earlier and checked, they said rough estimate, they don't know yet. They don't have the good numbers, but they're saying $59 million cost to the city of Chicago. But if they have that type of data, and then they triple the number of agents into a smaller area like Minnesota, of course, it's going to have a bigger negative impact. But people can learn, other communities can learn from Minnesota. Like, you can still stand up to this administration. You can, like, regardless of uh, if they put police on their vests, so that they can ensure compliance, because that's the other thing when we're talking about trust in local law enforcement earlier, because now people will have to distinguish between, okay, are you real police, or are you like fake police? Because only police supposed to wear police, but put these labels on their vests so that they can be able to gain compliance from people. Because a regular person, it's not like they're afraid of police, but if they see police, they will be more compliant. So, but people can learn that yes, you can stand up, you have rights to follow them. Just don't put yourself in harm's way, uh, like a lot of people did. And knowing the consequence of encountering these people, they were still going out and monitoring.
Yeah, one of the things to clarify, like in Minnesota, I don't know what it has been happening in other communities, but I think Minnesota was the first to actually do that, where in like, they were training constitutional, as we're calling them, constitutional observers, where in like you are just, they say it is your right to recall ICE, even though just don't interfere with their activity, but you can record them, you can videotape them. And it was actually frustrating these guys, but there are classes in Minnesota that they are trained, if you are willing to take that class, how to be a constitutional observer. That is something that that's happening. So those are some of the takeaways maybe folks can take away from Minnesota, right? Like, hey, man, you're actually allowed to recall federal agents or any law enforcement. I didn't even know that, right? That's the law. So they were training folks, and people were taking those classes in droves. Right, you hear it? I mean, people are really signing up for those classes. I think even up to now, people are signing up for those classes, right? How to observe law enforcement constitutionally without interfering with their activity, and things like that. So wow, and folks, and these things were really, really crowded.
Yeah, I mean, we hosted one February 9th,
Mhm.
and it was not publicized. And so how they're doing these training is just word of mouth. And so we had 50 people show up on February 9th to get trained. To all totally between December and now, 30,000 plus people have been trained to be observers,
Yeah.
to be constitutional observers. And so people here in Minnesota, they're committed. They're committed to this activist life. Y'all
Anything,
know about this. We do this.
anything. Peter, go ahead. You off mute. I think you're. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, I think you're off mute. Go ahead. No,
His
no, we're not.
volume must be off.
Yeah, you're on mute. I think
You
something wrong
can't-
with your sound.
No, you must have turned your sound down.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. Well, Peterson's trying to come back here, but that's the thing though, right? It's like it's a weird thing, right? Those constitutional observers, it's like I think other communities can learn from that.
Can you hear me now?
No, not yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Go ahead, go
Okay.
ahead.
No, I was gonna say before the administration even came into power. So this constitutional observer, it's a thing because I used to follow like even up to 9 years back, and but there was just few people online, like on YouTube, that would do this, and sometimes they would get arrested, sometimes they would get like harassed, but they say yes, it's a constitutional mandate that the Supreme Court passed that yes, as long as you're not getting, you're not impeding them from doing their job, you are allowed to video them. And sometimes you go any public area, basically any that is a government building, law enforcement, and but some people they would take it to the extreme where they would get into like the police officer's face and things like that, and they would tell them like just back up and say they're afraid of cameras. It seems that's what it looks like because if they see somebody with a camera, then they're going to be on their best behavior. So because not all the time with the body worn camera be on, or sometimes they will say, "Oh, it accidentally got erased" or something like that. So with people carrying cameras around, I guess it's a thing because I've followed. There was one guy who was like the famous constitutional observer, Long Island something. He's from New York, and he travels the country going to like public places, like just encounters with law enforcement and recording.
Yeah, I mean, they are actually afraid of cameras, right? I've learned from I the way when they saw those cameras and those phone out, right? They were freaking out, and
Yeah.
things like that. So, so yeah, so cameras are a real thing. But the other thing is, I focus on 1 hour show. As we try to wrap this up, I want to push one more angle because that's what the administration has been kind of a pushing here, right? Like the media and the messaging, right? Media and messaging matters. I know a lot of I've said it on this platform. A lot of our other a lot of the immigrant run platforms, especially in the African immigrant community, they are all focused on different things, right? But yet the administration and the government, the federal government is I basically I think the messaging around immigrants and immigration is about criminals.
Yeah.
And nobody is pushing back. I don't think the national media is even pushing back on our behalf. Okay. I mean, obviously, we are just a small little platform here, right? Trying to do our best, right? Just trying to promote what it is like like the immigrants' contribution to this country, what immigrants are doing for this country, like and things like that. And immigrants are not criminals. But the administration messaging and the overall messaging, I think a lot of Americans are bought into that though. Like immigrants are criminal. Immigrants are not positively contributing to the society. People are buying into that narrative. How can we change that though? How can we shape those perceptions going forward, moving forward? Now, I mean, the search is over here in Minnesota. I mean, Chicago is no longer, there's no more surge there. Other communities, you don't have ICE activity, but there's still something that we are dealing with. I don't think it's just going to go away overnight. It's the whole perception around immigrant and the narrative.
Well, I know community organizations have communication managers. They have community papers. I can think about the spokesman recorder, the sister spokesman recorder, Minnesota spokesman recorder. They are always sending out electronic newsletters and telling a different narrative. I think about Next Page, right? And so community media is trying their best to hopefully be a voice and kind of change the narrative and provide the community shared story, shared narrative. But when you look at mainstream, we thank God for social media, right? The TikToks and the Instagrams and the Facebook, has allowed community to tell their own story and carry their own narrative. But outside of that, we don't own any major media platforms, right? I think the actress David, I'm gonna mess up his last name, is the Nigerian guy, Owamagi or something like that. He just started his own streaming platform called Mensa. That's Mensa, right? And for the very reason he started it, that you're trying to hint on, Abraham, was the fact that we don't own any platforms, right? That we can control the narrative that is out there. We can control what about us is being depicted and shared to the larger audience. And so it's a fight. I won't say nobody's trying. We're all trying, even like you said, Inner Circle podcast here in its own weak ways, trying to tell a different message when it comes to who gets criminalized. I mean, just African American community is still dealing with it till this day, right?
Yeah,
To
yeah.
tell their story.
Peterson, how can we as immigrants shift that narrative? And because I think that when you look at the messaging, right, even like, I mean, Christian norm is like the first thing she said, number one, the way they branded the guy, but when you look at their messaging, so it was about criminal, illegal alien, the worst of the worst. And someone sitting in small town Minnesota, somewhere in Ely or somewhere in Brenner, or someone sitting in, Iowa, is not going to trying to differentiate between, so when you have an accent, they're probably going to brand you like that, right? It's like, so how can we change that whole narrative, the perception?
Yeah, it's something that is going to take time. Yeah, because now it's like damage control. The damage have already been done, and it caused massive, I guess, damage to the immigrant community. Because even from the president's first term until like this second term, every time they talk about immigrants, it's in their negative. So like immigrants are criminals, like you said, rapists and this and that. So in order to change that narrative, we have to start small, like we are doing here, and other folks that I'm sure are trying as well. Because to your point, none of the like the national networks, or even if they are not national platforms that are much bigger than ours, they are not trying to force this issue. Like, okay, can we bring something else that is alternative to what is being said about immigrants? Because if every day we hear on whatever network you turn to, oh, immigrants are criminals, and then you would take the minority negative um, criminals or people who commit crime in the community and just extrapolate to the whole immigrant population to say, oh, yeah, all immigrants are criminals and things like that. So, and to you guys' point about representation or lack thereof, like we don't have voices out there to advocate on behalf of like the immigrant population to say, oh no, uh, you are not talking about immigrant. All immigrants is just a few, and those people who did commit crime, they have been held accountable. They are either in prison or they've been deported and things like that. But everybody just go along with this whole narrative. Even those who are in power, those who are elected, some of them they're afraid to speak up. because of their own like political life, so they don't want to be cut off. So, and we live in a cancel culture. So if somebody comes out against like the administration, yeah, you sure they're gonna you're gonna hear about it. As Jimmy Kimball and Stephen Colbert, I just heard recently too. So all
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, folks, we've been discussing after the surge healing and the road ahead from Minnesota. It's been a great discussion where Peterson have been telling us what happened in Chicago when those guys left, and here we don't know what's going to happen here, but hopefully our community can heal. But as we wrap this thing up, man, Peterson, what's your message to the folks out there? Especially to the folks in Minnesota here, to other communities, as the entire nation deal with the whole ICE thing, right? Is an ongoing thing. I don't think it's going to go away, even though they're going to go on a low profile. But what's the message to the community, to the immigrant community, to your fellow immigrants?
yeah, it's been a great conversation, and uh, to what you always say, this too shall pass. I guess with Minnesota, this is passing. We don't know if it's passed yet, but yeah, a few weeks ago, nobody knew that we'll even be hearing those words like, yeah, they're going to withdraw, whether it's a full withdrawal or at least cut down the number of people. But before we go up tonight, I just want to say the whole nation is mourning Reverend Jesse Jackson, and
Mm.
our condolences to his family. Those of us who are under like 60 years old, he's like considered like our Martin Luther King Jr. because that's a person we grew up knowing that yes, this person stood with Dr. King and things like that. So, but for the folks in Minnesota, just continue to hold down. This is coming to an end, and hopefully, you can get back to your normal lives sooner than later. It's going to take time, but there are resources out there. Reach out if you were impacted directly or indirectly, as far as to even check like your mental state to say, yeah, I'm afraid to go to work. I'm afraid to come out. There are people you can talk to. Not everybody is an enemy.
Okay, Miss B.
I mean, ditto to everything that Peterson just said. Um, I want people to take care of health first. Take care of health first. Make sure that you're healthy and whole, and then definitely, I mean, we're still gonna be out here in these streets. There's still more work to do.
Okay.
Um, let's do it.
Okay. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a good conversation. Miss B and I will be back here tomorrow for our business segment. So, John, we'll be discussing all of the program the governor has announced, small business grants out there, the loans out there. So our businesses, small businesses in the community can take advantage of them. So, thank you so much, folks, for joining us tonight. It's been a good conversation. My man Peterson from the great city of Chicago. See you all and good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.